Whoever wishes to come after me must deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me. In the gospel tonight, Jesus speaks plainly. He speaks about the cost of discipleship and what is demanded of faithful followers of Jesus Christ. This statement by Jesus, whoever wishes to come after me, must deny himself, must take up his cross, and follow me. This somber invitation to true discipleship indicates clearly that to be a faithful, practicing Catholic, it's not something that happens by birth or culture. I'm a cradle Catholic, as probably most of you are, and I'm of Italian descent, and in New York City, all Italians were Catholics. That's not what Jesus is talking about. He's talking about a personal decision that all of us must be ready to make with the utmost faith, trust, and resolve. Jesus is saying, essentially, that to follow him means to go where he goes. And he's made it clear in the gospel tonight, his destination is the cross. And so as Christians, as Catholics, we know that the cross stands out at the very center of our faith. And this evening's gospel gives all of us an opportunity to meditate and reflect on the cross. And I thought about how to do this. I think that one good way to appreciate and really understand this gospel tonight is to reflect on the lives of the saints. And two saints come to my mind with regard to resolve, with regard to taking up the cross: St. Thomas More and St. Maximilian Kolbe. These two saints are an example of true discipleship. They're an example of really what it means to follow Christ through a personal decision, not through birth or culture, through a decision made with faith, trust, and resolve. First, St. Maximilian Kolbe. St. Maximilian writes in his memoirs, he says, the Blessed Virgin Mary appeared to him. She appeared to him one day, and she held in her hands two crowns, one white and one red. And she asked him if he would like to have them. One was for purity, the other was for martyrdom. He said, I'll take them both. She smiled and disappeared. He was arrested in 1941 and sent to the infamous Auschwitz, the Nazi death camp. One day a prisoner escaped, and the Nazi commandant announced in response to that one prisoner escaping that 10 men would be killed. One man that was picked cried out and pleaded, I have a wife and children. Upon hearing this, Maximilian Kolbe stepped out 2 steps from his line, and he said, I would like to take that man's place. The commandant took him up on his offer, and he died 30 days later of starvation. And by taking up his cross, he became a saint of the Catholic Church. Second example is St. Thomas More, a man for all seasons. Thomas More held a high position as Chancellor of England under King Henry VIII, and he was beheaded in 1535 by order of the king when he resisted in the matter of the king's divorce. He would not sign the oath of supremacy. He would not sign allegiance to the king, which would be against the Pope. And he wrote a letter while he was in prison to his daughter, Margaret. Here are some excerpts from that letter. That letter came down to us to this day. He said, although I know Margaret that because of my past wickedness, I deserve to be abandoned by God. Yet I cannot but trust in his merciful goodness. But I know well, Margaret, that he will not let me be lost, and I shall therefore with hope commit myself to him. And therefore, my dear daughter, do not let your mind be troubled over anything that shall happen to me in this world. Nothing can come but what God wills. And I am very sure that whatever that may be, however bad it may seem, it shall indeed be the best. He was beheaded 30 days later. St. Thomas More and St. Maximilian Kolbe are sterling examples of true Christian discipleship. And so what about us, you and me? Aren't we all called to pick up our cross and to follow Christ? We are. Yes, all of us are. But we are not all called to martyrdom, as was Thomas More and Maximilian Kolbe. But we are all called to die to sin. We are all called to die to sin and to live a holy life. Crosses and sufferings will come our way. We all know that. It's part of life. We can't escape it. And when they do, the true Christian, the true Catholic, the true disciple of Christ accepts whatever disappointments or suffering that comes and unites those crosses to the cross of Christ. And in that way, that's the way to die to sin, by accepting and uniting our crosses to Jesus Christ and his cross. That's the way we take up our cross. That's exactly the way to do it. And yes, it's also important to point out, to understand and know that Jesus' call to self-denial is not fatalism. It's not resignation to a harsh life, to a harsh fate. It's not. The Christian paradox is that suffering and death to sin is the way, the path to the fullness of life. In the final analysis, Christianity is a religion of joy. It's a religion of resurrection. And it's a religion of everlasting happiness in heaven. Amen.